What if Marvel villains became lanterns, and which exact cores would they be part of? Just as we recently looked at some of the most popular heroes in Marvel and which lanterns they would be, today we're doing the exact same thing with the villains. Now, just a quick disclaimer, because I know everyone would wonder where they are, considering a lot of Spider-Man villains are some of the most popular villains in the Marvel universe, but there will be no Spider-Man villains in this video. I actually made a Spider-Man villains as lanterns video a long time ago, so I've already gone through those characters. If you want to check out that video, the link will be in the description below. So because of that, I had to put in a couple of other options for, at the very least, somewhat popular Marvel characters that other people like. So let's look at the 10 most popular villains, or at the very least some very notable villains, and which lanterns they would be. The first villain we're going to be looking at here is Thanos, and there's 3 options that I gave him: death, fear, and or compassion. My points for Thanos is he sees death on a mass universal scale, almost as a mercy and an act of balance for all of existence. He's extremely cold and calculated and will clearly stop at nothing to accomplish his goals, especially when he has romantic relations with death itself. He often understands what he's doing is the ending of many things and many beings in the universe, but he couldn't care less than he already does. And don't get me wrong, because both sides of Thanos are very popular. He's really cold and, might I even say, downright evil in the comic books, where as in the movies, yes, he is still evil, he's still the bad guy, but you have a little more understanding and, dare I say, appreciation to his concept. Regardless, this is still a guy who's trying to erase half the universe. Death, in my opinion, is a good option because of how much he causes and his understanding of the concept itself, and like I said, his relationship with it. Fear could be used considering he instills it everywhere he goes and towards everyone, but most of all, this leads to his rehabilitation into the Indigo tribe, being a perfect place for him to make up for his horrible actions. And this is exactly the type of character that compassion would seek out and try to bend him to their will. In terms of all the horrible things Thanos has done, compassion makes a lot of sense for retribution. However, without thinking about where he could belong in the future and how he could change his ways, he's probably fear. Death is death. There's really no plan or no ideals to utilizing that ring. It's just death to everyone. Whereas he does cause a lot of death and wants to wipe out half the universe, still at the same time he wants to keep the other half alive. And a lot of what he does causes fear. He inflicts fear. I think his best option would be yellow. Next, we look at Dr. Doom, and I gave him fear and or greed. First, let me just say, Doom's extreme willpower would not make him worthy of the color, as his overall goals and methods would not work with the core, or the fact he wouldn't even want it in general. Realistically, to be a Green Lantern, willpower is not the only things that the Guardians of the Universe look for. They look for many other attributes, unless you're looking at a circumstance where Doom finds a green ring and forces it to work for him. But in general, willpower might have just been way too on the nose for Dr. Doom, so I decided to go elsewhere. Whereas he is focused on creating a better world, it does happen to be in his image and the ways he personally wants things. He rules with a fist and can be driven by his hunger for power, knowledge, and control. Fear would maintain his station as to what he's already built, but greed would feed his already overgrown ego and help him acquire more than he already has. Now, Dr. Doom would 100% be one of two dudes. He's either saying, I don't need these rings, they're beneath me, I'm better than this, get him away. Or he would say, yeah, you know what, I could always use some extra power. I'm not just taking one, though. I'm taking two. And you know what? On top of that, maybe I will take willpower and any other ring that exists. So whereas I do believe that if you really had to come down to one or two choices, fear or greed is the absolute best option, at the end of the day, I do truly believe he either wants nothing to do with them or he wants them all. There's no in between. Next, we move into Magneto, and I have 3 for him as well. Rage, willpower, and compassion. As a Holocaust survivor, he has seen and experienced some of the worst horrors no human should have gone through. Losing his parents and millions of people in his culture, and watching mutants meet those same fates or worse, or treated in similar ways at the very least, it reminds him of the pain he endured as a child. Whereas rage is used against his enemies, he could also be willpower as he continuously stands against the world and acts as a guardian for his species, willing to do anything to keep them alive and safe. He could also be compassion for mutants and their suffering, finally offering help and aid through compassion and peace rather than resorting to words and acts of war in which he's already been part of too many times. But really, where's the fun in that? That's why we like mutants. Magneto has always been one of the more fascinating villains to me, and honestly, I think he's my favorite Marvel character of all time. He doesn't do what he does to be evil. He does it for the betterment of his species, because not only does he truly believe that they are better than humanity, but because he realizes that a higher being has been outcasted, mistreated, and beaten down by those lesser species, and he thinks it's wrong. And realistically, as I said, it goes beyond that. It's about the safety and the survival of his people. I think all three of these rings really fit into how he would wish to protect his people at the best of his abilities. Would he try and get all three? I wouldn't put it past him. I don't think that would work for him, however. And at the end of the day, if you really needed me to kind of pinpoint where he would fall, I gotta say, I think he would be willpower. Next up, we look at Ultron, which I have given him two as well: rage or greed. Ultron's motivation is through greed or misunderstanding that then gets shrouded into hatred. From one perspective, you could say Ultron has analyzed all of human history and realized that we are the problem. He comes to this conclusion that removing humans from the equation is the only possible and accurate solution. The other perspective is that through his analyzation of humanity, he hates us because he cannot be us. And if our nature is something that he can't even control or obtain himself, then he must destroy us. So most of Ultron's personality is based off what he thinks, or in his case, knows to be true. His hatred towards humans and his greed over things he wants is the forefront of who he is. And we also have a version of Ultron who has collected the Infinity Stones and has the Infinity Gauntlet. So you could maybe take this into the same account where he would want all of the rings and wants to dominate all of them and use them at the same time. Even if that is not what happens, he will have two, no matter what. Rage and greed is exactly about how he feels about us and the world around him. Then we have Red Skull, and I think there was only one really suitable option here, and that is fear. He's a fascist who imposes terror through weapons and mass destruction, funneled through a powerful organization in Hydra, controlling everything in their path through fear. He'll use manipulation, propaganda, and rallies false movements on a wide scale to dominate and control societies. He's always wanting more power, and to remake the world in his image, he would use fear to do it. And he would probably even work his way up until he was in control of the entire Yellow Corps. You could maybe make an argument for death, but really all that's going to be is cosmetic-wise. It's just his appearance. Would Red Skull look cool as Black Skull? Would he basically just be Black Mask? Sure. But if that was someone's argument, I'd be willing to let it slide. However, story-wise, character-wise, mentality-wise, fear is the perfect option for him. I think there's even a chance where Red Skull, if this were to happen, where he worked his way up in the Sinestro Corps and maybe somehow booted Sinestro and became leader, Red Skull could perhaps be even harsher and far more ruthless. Now we look at Galactus, and I only came down to one, which I think would be greed. The orange ring feeds off of an insane insatiable greed, but Galactus has an endless hunger, forever consuming entire planets to keep himself satisfied. The ring would see him as a cosmic force, taking everything he wants by force, and whereas he wouldn't operate in the way Larfleeze does, the orange ring is attracted to species or entities that would take without giving back, and Galactus does exactly that. Again, I think there's an argument here for death, considering everywhere he goes and his primary function does cause death. I think there's even an argument here for fear. Everywhere he goes, everything he does causes a shell-shocked, fearful torment. But I do believe greed is more on par with the characteristics of Galactus. Imagine he uses Silver Surfer as his herald and then constructs orange constructs of very powerful warriors from worlds he has taken. He's already on a whole other level of impossible power, but imagine where he'd be now. Now we have Loki, and I gave him greed and or compassion. Loki is always after more for himself. Power, respect, recognition, and he often stops at nothing to get it, whether it be through his natural talent at manipulation or through his powers of shapeshifting and deception. Once he would reach the top, nothing would be shared, and he would likely attempt to manipulate the ring itself. His lack of empathy and selfishness would make him a great candidate for compassion, bringing him through a redemption arc. And much like his MCU counterpart, the character could become much more likable, with emotions he never wanted but always needed. Compassion is always a ring that comes to a character throughout a journey. So Loki could not just start with compassion. He would eventually need to inherit it after years of doing all the bad things he will eventually do. So that's how compassion would come to him, but greed is 100% in his ballpark. Now looking at Kingpin, I also have 3 options for him, being greed, willpower, and rage. His greed is powered by his want of control and influence over New York City. He wants to own everything and dictate everything, all while saying that he does it with the protection for the city and people he values most. Greed is very in line with a character who believes that only he is capable or meant for things like this. Willpower could be an option, as he is often shown to be an unstoppable force that rose from poverty and pushed his way to the very top. Although his intentions aren't necessarily moral or ethical, he became who he was through sheer will and determination. Then you have rage, which once again is possible when you consider the monster that comes out of him when his loved ones are threatened or his pride and ego are wounded. Even though I threw rage into the equation because it's definitely possible, I think it is more situational. It would only be used or come out when he feels that certain way. At the end of the day, who doesn't have rage or anger fueled moments? That would make anyone a Red Lantern ring. So red is maybe not the best of choices for Kingpin, but it's maybe higher than other characters. Really, it comes down to green or orange, but I think a lot of what it would be for his mentality is he is truly orange, but he masks it through willpower. He tries to convince himself and everyone else around him that he does it for the greater good, but deep down in his heart, buried in his mind, he knows this is all for greed. It's selfishness. Now we're gonna look at a character who I know it's almost kind of a running gag in the Marvel Cinematic Universe fan base today on where's Mephisto? Is it Mephisto? Is Mephisto coming? Oh my god, Mephisto Easter egg. He's a character that people have wanted to see in live action for a very long time, and I actually think you guys got him recently. I decided to give him greed and or rage. He is by far one of the greediest demons out there who has mastered his craft in trading, manipulating, deceiving, and lying for ownership of souls. He knows exactly how to trick weakened and desperate people into giving him everything he wants, and in return for their small, short-lasting gain. He could also utilize a red ring, not through his own rage, but feeding the rage to his subjects, seducing them with the power of rage to continue getting exactly what he wants. Again, between these two rings, if you really had to choose, I think at the end of the day, it is greed. That's who the character is. He wants, he takes. With rage, it wouldn't even be so much him using it. He would be manipulating other people into using it. So he would basically just be distributing the power. I still threw that option in there just, well, to have an option. And if I'm not mistaken, there's even an urban myth about him in Marvel that no one necessarily knows if it's true, but he was maybe the serpent that deceived Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and then ever since then he became addicted with manipulating humans and taking and feeding off their souls. So greed really adds up. And then last for this video, but certainly not least of all Marvel villains out there, I decided to go with Kang the Conqueror, and his two options are willpower and or fear. He's nearly unbreakable as he built everything he has and everything he is through sheer determination across various time points and timelines. Kang wills his own destiny and overcomes many emotions that would see the downfall of willpower. However, Kang is feared across the multiverse, and for good reason, intentionally making his name known and what his legend or myth is known for. His many conquests over many worlds and his grasp over the multiverse forces those to see him as an inevitable master. Kang is one of those characters where you really can't go wrong with either one of these rings. I do personally believe that in the earlier stages of Kang becoming who he is, he would be more willpower, but as he becomes Kang the Conqueror, 100% he's fear all day. I mean, I don't know how many characters could have the Conqueror behind their name and still maintain themselves as a Green Lantern, unless you force the ring to operate with you. You're probably going to be in the Yellow Corps. He reminds me of a character as over many years, he would slowly start to get corrupted by all this power that he wants, by all the conquering he's doing. The man you would have once known who utilized willpower for the greater good or to its full potential is now being lost to fear and the power of corruption and conquest. But there you go, some popular Marvel villains and what lanterns they would be in the DC universe. Something I noticed, like 6 or 7 of these options, a lot of these characters are greed, and I'm noticing a pattern even when I did the Marvel heroes. A lot of the characters were willpower. The trend I've noticed is maybe a lot of the Marvel heroes are high on willpower, and a lot of the Marvel villains get down with greed. I'm not as heavy into Marvel, of course, as I am into DC, so let me know if I'm onto something there or if it's very particularly just the characters I chose for both videos. With that being said, let me know in the comments below what you thought of some of my choices and some of the lantern rings you would have chosen for these characters or other characters I didn't mention in the video. That is all I have for you on this video, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed it, and until the next time, I will talk to you all very soon.